Good evening. Welcome to the Forex Pro Charts weekly trade results for the week that began April the 17th, 2011. We only had one trade this week, and some of you may not have taken it. This is the Euro USD, and here we see that the Euro had been in this zone beginning with 1.4455. The Euro had been in that zone, and we'd had a trade on it a week or so ago. It moved down out of the zone. It moved fairly well out of the zone, but it did not completely reestablish ratio, but it did move fairly well out of the zone. Came back and bounced on the armpit at 1.4530. You can see here it came up, it spiked through, came down, hung around here for a couple of hours, and then moved down. The total gain here was 45 pips. Then price moved back up and went all the way up to this monthly armpit where it also bounced. So we posted a trade alert on this, but we cautioned traders that this was this zone had been revisited before, that ratio had not been reestablished, and you know, that unless you're one of our more aggressive traders, that you not take this particular trade. The trade was successful, as I said, for 45 pips. If you've been with us for very long, you know that sometimes trades are successful even though all of the odds enhancers aren't there, or we do not recommend them. Sometimes you're lucky and get a bounce anyway. But if you remember, the whole philosophy of the Forex Pro Charts way of trading is that you minimize your risk, and that by significantly reducing your risk and increasing your probability for success, you avoid losing money and you become a successful trader. So just because price happened to bounce does not necessarily mean it's an excellent trade, and we try to point those things out to you. And that's why often in this results video I will show you, as I will here in a few minutes, what happened with a trade that some newer traders might look at and think, oh, it's hitting the 60-minute armpit, I'd better trade. We try to post alerts letting our traders know not to trade it and why. We also address that in the weekly analysis, so you need to be familiar with your weekly analysis, familiar with your zones, and be planning ahead for yourself which zones you're going to trade if price hits. Because if you just go in and look every day at the charts and see where there's a 60-minute armpit, you're going to forget what's happened before, and you're going to trade some zones that you should not be trading, and then you're going to wonder why the system isn't working for you. So the whole key is to be selective with our trades, selective with our 60-minute armpits. We do trade most of them, but when price has spent a good bit of time in the zone, then the risk starts to increase and the probability for success starts to decrease, and we do not take those trades. So some of you, as I said, are more aggressive traders, may have traded this 60-minute armpit, and you would have had a successful first portion of your trade, and then depending on how you manage your trade, you do notice that price came down here just to this trend wall, spiked just a little bit through, and then went back up. So that was the Euro USD. Now let's go ahead and take and you'll notice this week on the analysis that you will not see this zone because price formed a new buy zone, and it was overlapping and confusing. So instead of cross-hatching this zone, we just took it off since it is now dead. You'll notice that on our charts for next week. But let's go ahead and take a look at the GU, because we saw a similar thing, but we did not recommend that trade. We did not take it, and we warned our traders against it even more strongly than we warned against this EU. And so let's take a look and see why. Okay, so for the GU, we see that price had been in this zone, and if you remember last week, price was in this zone. Price moved down hardly at all, only got down to this monthly armpit, spiked through it a little bit, and then came back up in the zone. So price not only had not reestablished ratio completely, it had barely gotten out of the zone, and price had spent quite a bit of time in this zone. So when price came back up and moved into the zone, moved towards the 60-minute armpit, we warned our traders against taking this trade because of how price had acted right here. If you remember, with the EU, price went down fairly well before coming back up, even though ratio was not established. But we saw saw this, and even though these trend walls were running here, because price had hardly moved out of the zone, we felt there was too big a chance that these trend walls could be breached, that this 60-minute arm pit could be breached. And sure enough, you see price did come up here, and it consolidated, and it bounced, you know, maybe a little bit, depending on how you want to define bounce, but it did definitely consolidate, but it did not achieve our 20 pip goal for our first lot. So if any traders took this trade, they probably lost on this trade, because price then, after consolidating, went ahead, moved up out of the zone, past these trend walls, and even moved through the weekly armpit before turning around and coming back down, and then consolidating just above this weekly armpit for the rest of the week. So this is an example of a trade that we post in our results section as an unsuccessful trade, but we do not count the losing pips because we specifically warned our traders not to take this trade, and why. So that was all the action we saw on zones for this week. As you know, if you've been trading with us long, some weeks we will have very little or almost no action in our zones, and then other weeks we will have action in 4 or 5 zones. So pays to be selective, pays to be patient, and had another decent week with possible potential of 45 pips on the EU. And that is it for this week. For more information or to subscribe to our full analysis and charting services, please go to www.forexprocharts.com. You can get a week-long demo to our charts and have full access to our analysis and alert services. Thank you very much. Have a good week, and we look forward to seeing you back next week.